Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Real Life Podcast. Now, for some of you, this might be your first time actually watching, not just listening. And for others, welcome back. Welcome back to the Real Life Podcast. I am your host, Dale Satrum, with my co-host, Katie Jones.
Hello. Excited to be here.
Oh, I am too, because you see, we've had a break. We've been gone for a while, but good grief, like almost 2 months?
Yeah, I think our last episode, if you're a listener, you know, I think our last episode dropped at the end of May.
Wow.
And we're now almost in August.
Okay.
So we've had a little, what do you pastors call it? Sabbatical?
A sabbatical, yes. Yeah, sabbatical. So we have had a sabbatical, but you know, we're trying to do some new things. We're trying to relaunch the podcast. We're trying to expand our audience and our influence. We now are doing, well, you can see us, which is kind of fun. We have a studio now.
Yep.
We got some really cool.
Shout out to the production team.
Yeah, shout out to those who,
amazing.
They did an amazing job. There's just stuff you can't see. I mean, I know you see us, but there's big lights in front of us and
Blinding
just some really cool stuff, all right? And we're going to try not to be distracted and look at it while we do this.
Yeah.
But how fun.
And the whole entire point of this podcast, if this is your first time listening, or, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, this would be the first ever real life podcast episode on YouTube. The whole idea behind this was we wanted a place for people to be able to ask their real life questions about following Jesus in real, messy life.
Yep.
And if you are a Foothills person, you know that Dale has a great style of being very authentic, very open, very honest, but there's only so much you can get in on a Sunday, a Sunday morning that is specifically designed for church. So this podcast, we have designed it to have not only you get to know the other sides of Dale, well, he wanted to make sure I included the fun corner. I said fatherhood, fitness, family. He's like, don't forget the fun.
Fun, lots of fun.
Yes, travel. There's so many other things that we can learn from you. But also, this is a spot where we can talk about real life world events that are going on, a Christian's perspective on those. How should we be responding? And then also your questions. So that's the other facet of this, which is our favorite part. We love hearing from our listeners. We love for people to be able to write questions to PD. A lot of questions I'll ask him on the fly because if you've been listening, you know I love to ask him hard questions. So anyways, but today we were just going to have kind of a relaxed, chill, and catch up.
Yeah. And I just, I just want to jump on a couple of things that you said because, again, some people know me. A lot of people maybe who are watching this for the first time don't. Part of what you alluded to is I have a passion to help people figure out how to follow Jesus in real life. And sometimes Sunday mornings, it's just a limited opportunity. And here's an opportunity for us to be a little, less structured, less unfiltered, more on the fly, more, can we say raw? Yes. A little more raw.
Yep.
Because I think life is raw sometimes. And we have to follow Jesus in that rawness.
Yeah.
And we need a place to talk about all this stuff. And you just can't always do that on Sunday mornings. Hey, and also Sunday mornings, it's a mixed audience. You've got children there. And some of you are like, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Everything, right?
Yeah,
it's everything.
Yes. And so, I also feel like we might be doing a disservice if we don't introduce a little bit, since this is a new platform. YouTube is totally new. So if you haven't heard a little bit of our backgrounds, you've been a pastor for 20 years. Yeah. No. So you came out of the womb a pastor.
We started Foothills 26 years. Yeah. That's funny. Not even. I know. I didn't even want to be a pastor.
Let me say that. The word feral when we were talking about our childhood earlier.
This is true. Yes. I was a feral child. But anyway, that's another story. So next May, I will have been a pastor for 40 years.
And
40 years.
Founder of Foothills. You and
founded Foothills. Lisa and I, we started Foothills in 1998, 26 years ago.
And how many people were there when you guys first started?
30.
30 people.
That included the nursery.
Wow.
that included the nursery.
And now in 2024,
I don't know.
This has grown. This is a pretty big church.
Yeah. We have 3 services, and we've got ministries. We've got 30-some employees. We reach out to the community. We give away massive amounts of resources. We take care of seniors. I mean, on and on. it's humbling to see what God has done over the years. So yes, we've been doing ministry almost my entire adult life.
It's amazing.
And so...
and lots of ups and downs. You've had a lot of...
my life is not perfect.
I love to say that because I also feel like people sometimes have these preconceived notions of pastors being these perfection, like just...
Hey, let's just say it.
goody
Some pastors are
two-shoes.
just weird. They are. Let's just own it. Some are just weird.
I wasn't going to say it. You said
I
it.
didn't
Yeah.
want to be a pastor to begin with. It never felt like I fit the mode or the model or whatever that's supposed to be. Maybe that's what God wanted.
Yeah.
So here I am, the guy who never wanted to be a pastor and who has been one for almost 40 years, but I'm still living real life too, just like you.
Yeah.
Just like they are. Okay? So I want to have real conversations, and sometimes I don't think the church is comfortable with real life conversations. They're just not. Mm-hmm. And we're not here for Christian cliches. We're here for the real, the messy, the raw, the brutal, the loss, the pain, the joys. We're here for it all. That's what we're about.
Absolutely. Yep.
And does Jesus even matter in all of that? Well, I think he does.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
Yeah, you've got a niche for taking the Bible and making it very relevant, because that was something I always struggled with in the past, was like, how is this story relevant to today? And you do a beautiful job of relating the Bible to our real life. So you guys are in for a treat.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
This is fun.
And honestly, this podcast idea, I never in a million years thought that I was going to co-host with it. But that's the trick when you work at a church. If you have a creative idea, they'll say, "Great,
you get to do it."
But I have always, I have a Christian background. I grew up in a Christian church, but it never was personal to me.
Right.
I never knew necessarily what it meant to really have a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
And then I am a mom of 3, and now my oldest is 6. And right around the time I started having kids, I was like, I need Jesus. If I'm gonna, tap into the best version of myself, it's got to come from outside myself.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell.
But I think that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think that this perspective, there's just a fun, unique perspective, I think, that we bring to the mix, because, not to bring age into it, but we're going to bring age into it.
You
because
did.
Yeah. I did. I mean, because we joke about it on here all the time.
You probably can't tell from looking at us, but we're a little bit...
Oh, that's why you're a great co-host. Yes, but there's 30 years difference between the two of us.
Hey.
But that makes it unique, and I think it gives a strength to the podcast.
Yeah, I am selfishly learning through PD. I think I'm in the position a lot of our listeners are in, whatever age they are, to where they're like, I would love to ask that, So I completely agree. But side note on the age, my daughter thought that he was, she saw a picture of the Florida Georgia Line singers, the country singers, and she thought one of them was Dale. So it's all the working out.
I like her kids too.
Yeah.
I like her kids too. So
if you've seen his wife, she's a bombshell as well. So take notes. Yeah. But anyways, okay, well, so if you want to know a little bit more about, PD's story, a little bit of my background, you can go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We've got, I think we have like 53 episodes already on there. So we're rookies to YouTube, but not rookies necessarily to the podcasting just yet. Well, still a little bit, but
we're still learning.
Yeah.
We're always learning.
Always learning, always growing. So anyways, the last 2 months.
So let's catch up. So today's about catching up.
Stuff. Yes.
Today's just catching up. Let's catch up.
You just got back from a camping trip.
I did.
Yes.
Yes, I love camping and hanging out with family, and we had our motor home, and we went down to Sweet Home and
so fun.
Foster Reservoir.
Did you guys camp like old school tents before you guys got your camper?
Oh my goodness, we've only had our motorhome for 2 years, so we.
You put in the time.
Oh yeah, we put in the time, but I don't want people to think that we suffered at all, because we had deluxe tent camping.
Nice.
I joke around about I camped like an Arabian prince. Okay, because our tent setup was deluxe. It was so.
Like the dresser and the fur.
No, it was. We had this massive tent. We had carpet. We had a queen size bed, a blow up bed. We had a blow up sectional. So literally, a big sectional couch.
I didn't know they made.
We had. Oh, they do.
Like that.
Well, it was a 20 foot. It was huge. You could stand up in it, and it was 7 feet tall.
It's amazing.
And yeah,
That is
no, it
glamping,
was,
for
we had a
sure.
refrigerator, coffee maker. It was, people literally would stop by and say, can I look inside your tent, please? Absolutely. I should have charged tours.
Yeah. I'll show you a tour.
But it was a lot to set up.
That is so wild. That's amazing.
Motorhome's fun.
Yeah.
Good times.
That is so fun.
Love hanging out with family and friends, and they'll, if you're new to the podcast, you'll know that is definitely one of our priorities, relationships.
Yeah, you said something.
The eternal things.
You said something a while ago to me that has really stuck with me, very profound. I told my husband about it, and he was like, that's a great point. You talked about how, lots of people really want their dream house. They plan for their dream house, but they don't plan for like their dream life. When you are on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm so glad that I got the granite countertops and like the marble, and all the fancy floors. You're going to be thinking about like your house and all the memories it held. And you've said you and Lisa have really catered your house around making memories. That's why you invested in a pool. That's why you guys go on these trips. Like you put your money and your resources into making memories that are lasting. And that's just really stuck with me because even just recently I was telling my husband, I was like, the trim can wait. We're going to Hawaii. We're going to put... So even though it'd be nice to have certain things done, I'm like, you know what? We're going to make some memories because it's been a while since my kids have had a really good vacation with their dad. And so, I just love that about you and Lisa. And I think you guys have set a great example with that. Not that everybody can do these fancy trips, but you've talked about even in the past, you guys just made time for just regular camping trips with the kids or going out and doing things. And I think that's so valuable.
Yeah, I think that we live in a very affluent culture, affluent world, and I think that it's just really people don't stop and question, why am I living this way? Everything comes at a cost. Everything has a price tag to it. Everything comes at a cost, and sometimes I don't think we recognize what we're paying, and sometimes it's. We're unintentionally throwing away the things that have greater value. Because relationships are the eternal things. Relationships, at the end of your life, you're not going to worry about your stuff. You're not going to surround yourself with your things. You're going to surround yourself with your people. And so...
That's a great point.
Being a pastor, I've seen that my entire life. And so I've had a front row seat to a lot of people's end of life. And that sounds creepy, but what it does is it helps put life in perspective. And so Lisa and I decided that we would rather live on less so that we can do more. Live on less, okay? Now listen, if you can get your dream house, there's no judgment here. So
right.
that's not what we're about. Good. If you can get it all, that's fine. But I think sometimes, what did you sacrifice to have your dream house? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not that binary, but you're going to pay a price. And so, so people are sacrificing the wrong things. They're sacrificing their relationships. You can always have things taken from you, but nobody can take my memories. Nobody can take my memories. In fact, I believe those memories, those relational good memories, I'll even have them in eternity. You're not going to take your stuff with you, but your people, your memories. So sometimes I think as followers of Jesus, we don't really live with an eternal perspective. We value and we invest in the eternal. So, like I said, we would just rather try to live a little more simply and do more stuff with our people, making memories and investing in those relationships. That's just the choice that we've made.
So you got the trips lately. Tell us about the rest of the last couple of months. Yeah. You've had some life stuff happen, and I think it's so valuable. It's one thing for people to hear, and you give excellent advice, but now you're literally walking through.
Yeah, our lives have changed since February, and I know that some people are aware of what has taken place with my parents. My parents they're both alive. They were part of Foothills. We're a very close family. We spent tons of time together. So, but Mom had a very severe stroke in February, on a Sunday morning, February 4th, in fact. Interesting how those dates stick in your head. And then her whole right side is still paralyzed. She's, again, fairly nonverbal. She is now in an assisted living place after 3 months of therapy. And that right side, it'll never come back. And so her entire life has changed dramatically, and so is ours, because now she's in assisted living. She has a level of care that we just simply can't provide for her.
And you have said her mental state is completely intact, though. She can
Well, yeah,
understand.
there are some questions
Sure.
that we have since she's nonverbal, but yet we interact. Her personality is there. She's sweet. We can love each other. She can say a few words. It's still mom, and so it's she can feed herself. Some things she can do, and she can love you back, and that's good. So we're adjusting to that. Dad, on the other hand, right now is because of mom's stroke. He I don't know how else to say it. Mentally broke, and has been on a constant decline. We had to put Dad in assisted living. There is some complicated mental issues. Dementia's part of it, but he just rapidly accelerated, and he's also in assisted living. His level of care is 24/7. Watching that happen rapidly has been very difficult for us as a family. Dad here recently, last couple of weeks, we had to now include hospice. So that's where our journey is.
You mentioned earlier it was like looking at a mirror.
Well, I think that, so I've had a front row seat with end-of-life things as a pastor, but they're not your family necessarily.
Yeah.
Friends, close people you're close to, so that's happened plenty of times. Walked people through cancer, friends of mine through cancer, but now here is your parents. And so, just the other day, I'm sitting next to Dad, and he's laying in bed, and and he's lost his life, and he's talking about it. He had kind of a lucid moment, and we're talking about life, and I was just talking to Dad, and grieving it with him, and. But I said, Dad, it's the way of things. It's a mirror. I says, Dad, here in, 20, 30 years, and hopefully longer, I will be the one laying in the bed, and it will be my children sitting in this seat talking to me. And I said, we did the same thing with your dad. Don't you remember Grandpa? You and I were sitting on the next day, his bed. I mean, this is the cycle. This is the way of things. And so it was kind of a mirror where it was like, Dale, this is what's coming for you. Not to be morbid, but I think we live in denial. We're really good as human beings living in denial of this inevitability. Okay, and
Do you think it's all over the world or just our Western culture?
I think some cultures are a little bit better at dealing with it than the U.S.
We are fixers. We want the happy endings.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But no matter how healthy you are or what way you leave this world, we're all leaving this world.
Right.
And so we should live with the end in view. That's not morbid. That's the reality. And so if I know, so as I'm sitting here looking at my dad, almost like, again, looking in the mirror, this journey is very, very short. Mine's probably shorter than yours just because I'm older. And so I'm going, well, what do I want to do with the next 20 years, 30 years? So, because this is where it's going to go. So again, that sounds morbid. It's not to me. Like I said, I'm a pastor. This is, dealing with end-of-life stuff is normal, but now it's very personal. So yeah, so that's the journey we're on as a family. We just had to sell my parents' property. So all those childhood memories and all of that. So yeah, it's been an emotional journey.
How do you balance making, because you're talking about you spend time with the grandkids, like there's still so much life, there's still so much joy in your life, but you guys are also dealing with all this, like essentially this grief, even though you said they haven't passed away yet, but there's a sense of loss there.
Yeah.
How do you guys balance the joy along with the sorrow? Like, how does that work?
Well, it's a contrast. Your life is a contrast. It's everybody's life has good and bad going on at the same time. I think if we ever want utopia, that's not going to happen. That's heaven. Heaven's coming later. You have seasons or moments or days and weeks where, hey, everything's clicking. But let's face it, everybody has a life that's a mixture of the good and the bad, the joy and the sorrow. It seems that we're in a season where we seem to be living extremes. We have incredibly good things. We have relationships, and we have family. We have grandkids. We're still making memories, and those things are sweet and wonderful and adorable. And I mean, we're going camping, and the granddaughters would come in our motorhome every morning. They get out of bed. First thing they need to do is head to go see grandma and snuggle with both of us.
Oh,
I mean, that's like the best.
so
okay,
sweet.
I'm not just soak that up.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you live the other extreme. You're grieving the loss of your parents. I mean, they're alive, but they're both not the same.
The quality of life is.
Yeah, and you've taken over their life. You've sold their property. You've taken over their finances because they're both incapable of everything. And so it's just a really weird dynamic. And there's this inevitable that's coming, and so you're living with emotional extremes, and that takes a toll on you. I mean, it does. It takes a toll. I don't care how spiritual you are. It takes energy, and it's grief and trauma.
Right.
I was reading a book, on here a while ago, and they were describing a condition I was struggling with mentally focusing. It was like my head was a pinball machine. I couldn't focus, and I've always been really good at mental focus, and it wasn't working. Okay, what's wrong with me? And I say that I say it too much through this process. And he was describing the inability to mentally focus, and he was describing actually what I was going through. He says is the telltale sign of trauma. That kind of put me back on my heels. I don't go through trauma. Oh, maybe I do. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe losing both your parents, taking over their life, doing this very rapidly, both in assisted living, on and on, everything that we've done in the past few months, it kind of is traumatic.
Yeah.
Okay. So part of it's trying to be honest with myself and honest with what's going on and honest with my emotions and trying to understand how I feel and then giving myself permission to not be normal. That's tough.
Yeah, especially your personality is very much a mentally tough personality.
No, it is, and you're driven, and you know what you're capable of doing, and now you can't do it. I mean, you have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the journey that we've been on, is just trying to figure out, how do I stay healthy? What does healthy look like in this season?
What are you doing to stay healthy? What does that look like for you right now?
Well, honesty with yourself, self-awareness. You have good days and bad days with that.
Yeah.
I can live in denial like other people. I mean, I can lie to myself.
I had pizza rolls for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So, I can make poor choices. Okay. Where's the comfort food? Where's that bag of Lay's potato chips? I'm gonna eat the whole thing. Yeah.
Potato chips.
Yeah. My nemesis. So I think part of that too is being very self-aware. What's going on? And don't live in denial. I think that I'm not very good at being needy. In fact, I hate being needy. I'm the guy that people need. I'm not the one who's needy. So I'm on a journey with some humility with that, because I think that I need to need others right now. And you always need others, but it's at a different place. And so I need to be aware of that and allow people in, allow people to help when appropriate, whatever that means,
Yeah, I know that's probably really hard, but I also think it can be a blessing for other people to be able to help someone that needs it.
You're absolutely right. And they're exercising gifts, they're exercising compassion, they're doing what God told them to. All of that is true. I teach this stuff. Now I'm on the receiving end. Woo! It's just...
Yeah,
right,
it's overwhelming.
It kind of is sometimes, but you try to embrace the fact that it's God's still teaching you things. You're learning. Like, I want to learn. I'm not going to go through a bunch of crap for no reason.
You touched on, you said
See, I wouldn't
something.
say that on Sunday morning.
Right.
See, I wouldn't say crap on Sunday morning. A podcast, I might say crap. So there you go.
We'll beep it out. Beep. You touched on saying it's you're working on the humility. Isn't it fascinating? Because I wouldn't say I'm on your level, PD, but
stop.
I don't necessarily appreciate, or not, I shouldn't say appreciate, I don't like to be needy either.
Right.
And I don't necessarily like to be needed at the same time. I'm weird in the middle there.
Mm-hmm.
But like accepting help, I love to give it, but when you accept it, you're absolutely right. And it's good to be reminded it is a humility thing, because if you're like too good to accept that help, it's pride.
No, it is, and
you're absolutely right.
Lord shows us all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pride's the nemesis of humanity anyway. We all have threads of it that we're going to struggle with for the rest of our life. It isn't this, people think it's this, oh, I'm so much better than other people. That's not what it is. That happens in junior high or something, okay? If you're that way as an adult, we have Hope Counseling. You should go see them. Anyway, but it's more like this. It plays out like this. I don't need people. I can do it myself.
Yes.
We control. It's...
Guilty.
So yeah, well, so am
everything
I.
you said, yeah.
So I think that the pain and crisis sometimes can boil that kind of stuff to the surface. It's ugly. We all have it. Lord shows us that, not to destroy us, but to say, hey, we're still growing. We're still learning. I've been a pastor for 40 years, but I'm still working in your life. You're not done yet, so let's just scrape off some more.
Also, I want you to, maybe you'll share with our audience what you read to me earlier, but you talked about shrinking. I'm not going to do it justice. It's the shrinking the life.
Oh.
Explain that. That was very good. We were talking about this stuff earlier, and I don't want that to go without being talked about.
Yeah. I think that, I guess that would go back to how do you stay healthy? So I think that when we go through hard times, crisis, trauma, big life changes, whatever that is, painful things. What I'm finding is that if I continue to try to live my life in the same manner, with the same bandwidth, with the same commitments, it's self-destructive. Because trauma, pain does something to us internally. And so what I've had to do is try to shrink my life to its core things. I've got to shrink it and really prioritize my core relationships, my core things that I do even here at the church. I've pulled back from some things. Has nothing to do with being lazy, which my personality will struggle with.
I was going to say, is that an internal?
Oh yeah,
thing
internal
you've
fight.
got?
Yeah, it's like because you're a hard worker. So you're fighting some of those internal thoughts in your head and whatnot. But so I'm trying to give myself permission to shrink that to some of its core things, and those core things keep you healthy. Those core things, I still like speaking and preaching. We'll take a break. You shouldn't do that at all. Well, that would be difficult. I still enjoy. I still enjoy that.
Yeah.
And it's a sense of normality. I've been doing that my whole life, and so it feels normal. And then again, your family, because I'm not the only one struggling. I've got a brother and his wife. I've got kids, and I've got nieces and nephews. So we're a pretty tight family, and so it's not just something I'm dealing with. It's something we are dealing with. So yeah. So you just make sure you're keeping the core healthy.
Yeah.
Some of this other stuff, I just gotta let go. And it could be as simple as, my yard doesn't look that great. We do lots of stuff in our yard, and there's projects I don't have done. It doesn't look as good as it used to look, and I can implode over that, or I can just let it go.
Time to enforce the child labor on the grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, that's how they earn money with grandma. That's true.
Right,
That's true.
yeah.
So, okay, that's me. There's my life. Katie, what about you? We haven't talked about you at all.
Nothing as profound as the things you're learning. That is for sure. But thanks for sharing that. And being open about that with everybody.
Yeah.
So what am I up to?
Yeah. Besides podcasting.
Right. Yeah. So, being a mom of 3 definitely takes up some time. I'm learning, as my kids grow, I'm learning more and more about them and in turn about myself. So,
boy, doesn't parenting teach us a lot about ourselves?
Yes, it sure does. And I don't know if I'm sure you can relate to this as the personalities start to come out more, because when they're 2, they're pretty similar in certain aspects. They all have different things coming out, but like once they get to 6, I'd even say 4, 5, 6, their personalities are like really starting to shine.
Becomes more pronounced, huh? More pronounced.
And I, just being honest, as I love my kids so much, I can already tell I butt heads a little bit with firstborn personalities. I'm the youngest.
Well, so am I. This is why it works.
The golden child.
Oh, there we go.
I'm just kidding. No, they're wonderful firstborn. My brother is great. The firstborns are great. But there's certain traits that come out.
Yeah.
The very black and white.
Yeah.
This very like, nope, this is not fair. This is this. So like I am trying to not squelch that, because it's not necessarily a bad thing, but how do we get you to see there's some gray areas here. Life isn't fair. We got to teach you that right in the beginning. Everly is my oldest. We were teaching her how to ride a bike. And another thing I'm picking up, this might not necessarily be a firstborn thing, but she is a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. And I'm noticing that if she can't be the best, she doesn't even want to continue.
Didn't want to do it. Just taps out.
So which doesn't work. You're never the best when you start anything.
No.
So the riding the bike without training wheels, that was a goal of mine for her this summer. And she's doing great. She actually is doing really good. She got to the point where we don't have to hold the back of the bike.
Nice.
But she still is... like she will get so scared and she'll psych herself out.
Yep.
And she'll stop it. She's never actually had a crash. But the other day, I took her through our neighborhood. Mind you, it's less than a half a mile, like the whole neighborhood around, just to go on a bike ride. And she ends up getting so mad. I'm encouraging her. I'm like, Everly, you got this. You're doing good. You just psych yourself out. You stop too soon. And she says, you don't know what this is like.
Oh.
This is the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I say, if this is the hardest thing you've ever been through, like...
Well, it is at 7, okay? It is the hardest thing I've ever been through, so that might be true.
My parents might argue with me on this one. I don't ever remember being that dramatic about things like that. I would be like, nope, I'm going to get this. I'll keep going. it just is in my... But so with that personality, and... All right, I might get some hate comments on this.
No.
But she said, I'm a loser. And I said, if you quit, yes, that's what losers do. They quit. I said, if you keep trying, even if you're not the best, you're a winner because you keep trying. I said, but you're right, losers quit. Well, I'm a loser then. I'm just like, oh my gosh. She apologized later, and she's getting a lot better. That's another thing that's been really hard for her, is apologizing. But I think she's really growing in that area.
Black and white people tend to struggle with that issue. I don't want to get any hate mail either.
Oh yeah,
for this,
no, that's a big one.
Personalities all struggle with certain things. Our personalities struggle with following the rules.
Yeah. What?
What? Yeah, exactly. So, yet
true.
Black and white personalities. Yeah. Again, they're very black and white. They're very binary. It's right or wrong. Therefore, being wrong equals bad.
Yes.
See, I'm wrong all the time. What's the big deal?
I know. I will apologize all the time.
But if you're black and white and you're thinking, well, if I admit I'm wrong, that means I'm bad. And there's association. And, man, that's just tough to... Yeah, but you see it in our kids and our grandkids and helping them work through those emotions. Yeah. It's fascinating.
It is. It is fascinating. And, again, trying to not squelch the goodness in that personality while also, taming down... some of the problematic issues we got going on. But no, so, parenthood, started getting into ice plunges.
You're doing that?
You might have to try that, yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you.
That's such a fad.
No, it is. You know what got me?
Ice plunges.
This doctor was saying nothing does more for fat burning than an ice plunge. But even before that, I was like, you know what? Everybody's talking about the muscle relief, this and that. So me and my sister-in-law started doing it a couple times a week, and it was horrible at first. And now it's crazy, not even just in the physical realm, in the fitness realm, but when you torture yourself, essentially, put yourself through something terribly uncomfortable, how much more your capacity grows. So that's what I say. Do something that gets you out of your comfort, whether it be physical.
That's a whole nother topic.
Oh my gosh,
that's absolutely true.
I know. I could totally, I'm telling you.
Do not avoid what makes you uncomfortable.
So take an ice bath.
You could avoid that. Do something else.
Well, it's funny. We got this Bi-Mart cheap $35 one, and it broke after 2 times. I'm like, we got our money's worth. So then we started using my giant cooler, which we can fit in it.
It's like one of those 120 quart coolers or something.
It's a big cooler, and so we've been using that. But I have been sleeping better. I feel better after a workout. The key is to sauna and then do it, so you're ready to get in there. But it's good. It's really good. You should try it.
Do you do it like before bedtime in the evenings?
Yes, evening. And I sleep good. I don't feel as sore after workouts. I know people swear by it. We did 2 minutes last night. We started out at 30 seconds. We couldn't do more than 30 seconds. And now we're up to 2 minutes. And it's getting easier. It was the first time my sister-in-law was like, our neighbors are going to think we're being mean and making fun of people, because it literally knocked the wind out of her. She was like, like you could just hear it. But now, like, we can get in and it's not as bad. I'm telling you guys.
So here's a note to our listeners. We are not here to give medical advice on the podcast. So
Talk
if you do
doctor.
this and have a heart attack, it's not our fault.
Good disclaimer. Yeah.
Disclaimer.
Yep. So let's see. There's that. And yeah, I'm reading a couple books, and we got some fun trips coming up, but just enjoying life, trying to, exactly what you talk about, enjoying the day by day.
And it's summer.
Yep, it's summer. It's wonderful. I mean, that's the sweet spot in Oregon.
It is the sweet spot.
Yeah. So anyways, enough about me. We're going to add a new segment in, so bear with us. You guys are going to be excited about this one. We're calling it what did we say? Real life news.
Current events?
Current events, yes.
Real life current events.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know you guys all want to hear about the fires in Oregon. I'm just kidding.
Are there fires?
Yeah, there is. But no, I was going to ask your thoughts on the recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that? What was going through your head? Where were you when you heard tell me all the thoughts.
First of all, I think it's fun that we're going to just drop some current events in every podcast.
Yes.
Okay? And it could be 5-10 minutes, maybe not the whole podcast, but because current events impact followers of Jesus. And come on, we're in election year. It's going to get crazy out there. It's already crazy. We might as well talk about it.
Yep.
But we're not here to talk about politics. We're here about how to follow Jesus in the crazy.
Thank you for, and again, it's trying to figure out how to unite us instead of divide. But we can't help these things happening.
So you want to know what I thought about?
I want to know
about an assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Yep.
Well, I got lots of thoughts. I don't know how public I want to make them all, but
it's real life.
It's real life.
You're protected under that bubble.
Well, okay. I mean, first, the obvious, and I'm not going to talk about this much because I'm going to get to the following Jesus part of this. But I'm like, come on. How does anybody get 130 yards from a former president at any activity with a gun on a rooftop? So there's just that. Anyway, put that aside.
It's a little crazy.
It's nuts. But even that, I got to let that go because here's the thing. What I have to remind myself all the time is, and those watching, if you're a follower of Jesus, we must, I don't want this to sound like a cliche, but we have to continue to trust in the sovereignty of God. That sounds like a big churchy word. It's just simply that my trust in God being in control has to be so profound that it affects me emotionally. I think a lot of Christians go, of course I trust God. And then they're worked up every day watching the news. Well, it doesn't look like you're trusting God. If you trust God, why are you so angry? Why are you so afraid? Why do you have so much anxiety? Why are you building a bunker in your backyard? What the heck? Really? So you're having trust issues. God is in charge. Doesn't mean we don't pay attention. It doesn't mean that we don't educate ourselves. I mean, I read through the news. I don't watch it. I'm not emotionally mature enough to watch the news, okay? Because
That's a great point.
it is designed to get you emotionally connected.
It does
I
that.
can read it and it doesn't do that. I can pick and choose my topic. So I read what's going on. Okay. I mean, so I'm aware of what's happening. But if something that you're involved in is robbing you of peace and joy and hope because it's blotting out your eternal perspective. It's keeping you from seeing God. It's keeping you from seeing His goodness. It's keeping you from seeing that, hey, God is not surprised. So, did God protect President Trump? Well, I believe that God is sovereign. So, if he would have died, God would have allowed it. Didn't say it was good. It didn't say that it would have been a terrible thing. But God didn't allow it. God allowed this. Why? I don't know. I can't answer those questions. Did he protect President Trump? Well, yes, I would say he did. Does that mean God loves President Trump more than Biden? Absolutely not. It means none of that. It means that God has this big, large perspective that we don't see or understand, but yet we trust in. We trust in. If somebody tried to kill President Biden or the vice
which would be
president
just
or
as
anybody
awful,
else,
yes.
and they missed, I would have said God protected them too. Okay? So it's not this, who does God love more? I mean, that's just weird, Christians having those conversations.
Yeah.
God is sovereign over the whole political process. It's not Republican, Democrat, and independent, and this, and China, and Putin, and Ukraine. And I mean, could y'all just calm down?
Yeah, you bring up, I think I love the voice of reason, and I need this in this season, I'll be honest and authentic here. I have to actively take inventory. What's influencing my thoughts more? Is it the political commentators that I love to listen to?
Right.
Or is it the Bible and Jesus talking? And a lot of times it is the former. And I have to be honest with that, because I will watch something and I'll leave that feeling tense. I'll be like, oh, I just listened to it. Even though I completely agree with staying educated on things.
Absolutely.
I need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I need to know what do I need to do to help make this a better world for my kids too. Like I want to be educated.
Yeah.
But I also am like, but the most important thing is always God. Always, always God. So I love what you're saying about Him being in control.
Right, because that's where we find our peace and where we find our hope. If I believe that the world is spinning out of control, if I believe that the election is up to Republicans and Democrats, and if I believe it's up to the voting system, the electorate, if you're going to believe that, you're going to be stressed out all the time. And that's not how I read God's word. He's in charge.
So when
all things, in fact, is my devotions this morning in with Psalm 119, which is a really big psalm. All things serve your plan. I read that. I went, that's good stuff, Lord. Doesn't mean all things are good. Doesn't mean that God made bad things happen. That's not what it means. It means that God is so sovereign. He's so in control. All things can serve His plan. I like that.
That's good.
That-
It's
okay.
good you shared what you read versus what I read
Oh,
the
yeah.
other day, because what I read was in Deuteronomy. It was the eye for an eye,
yeah.
tooth for tooth. We talked about this earlier.
That's a whole other conversation.
I know, which we will. We were talking about Old Testament and New Testament contrast, which we can get into another episode because it was great. You had great insight. But how do you then see very clear injustices? How do we, as followers, then, because you're right, like Jesus is higher than any political figure, any politics. When you see clear injustices, when you see clear safety issues, this and that are topics that are very important to a lot of us Americans, how are we supposed to respond? How do you yes, put your faith 100% in God, but also like take a stand for what's right at the same time?
Okay, so great question. Okay, so I think we have to always ask ourselves, what can I control? What can I control? What is my biblical responsibility? What is not my biblical responsibility? And that's not always a black and white discussion. So we have to get past looking at everything so binary. All right. So we see from God's word that we do have a responsibility in culture. We have a responsibility to pay taxes, to obey government, to follow laws. So that would include, well, you can vote. You could influence that way. Okay, so there's some things that we can do. The Bible talks about how we meet needs. I mean, justice is a big deal to God. I mean, He says, "I am a God of justice." I mean, His throne, it says, built on the foundations of righteousness and justice. Okay, it's kind of a big deal. That's why He's called the judge. I mean, so it just doesn't always happen immediately. It doesn't always happen in His life. So, but yet, as His representatives, we can support justice. We can. Well, I think of even the things that we do here at Foothills. We meet a lot of community needs. We have, I believe, a responsibility to serve others. And so those are things that we can do. I can't control the world stage, but I can make a difference locally. I can make a difference here. We can feed thousands of people every month, and we do. We can take care of our seniors, and we do. So, see, part of that is not just compassion, it's a just thing. It's just. We take care of the widows and the orphans and the people who are needy, and you're always going to have needy people around you, and so we do what we can. Yeah. And yet you realize that the average person is not going to have an impact on the global scale, and nor did God call you to have an impact on the global scale. Maybe God calls a few people there, great, but He didn't call me. He didn't call you. And so I can't try to own more than what God has placed on us. And so there's just that balance. It might look a little different for every person. So I feel good about the difference that we can make. And then the rest of the stuff, I kind of have to let it go and trust in the sovereignty of God. Even if it doesn't go my way. If the election doesn't go my way, God, you're still in charge. If some other country does something that they shouldn't do, God, you're still in charge. People got to stop holding God ransom for things they don't understand and they don't agree with. I mean, He's God. He made this world. Well, how do we know what He's orchestrating? And we don't. The Bible says that.
We don't have all the facts.
We don't.
To almost anything.
Our perspective is so limited, and we have gaps in our understanding, and then we fill in the gaps with our presumption. And the Bible says through presumption comes nothing but strife. And that's what we have.
We have a lot of it.
We have a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, but we will be back. We're actually going to talk a little bit more about near and dear to what you're going through.
Yeah.
Some do's and don'ts as far as people grieving.
Yeah.
And then we'll also touch on maybe some other new stuff that's happening.
Everybody is going to be around people who go through grief and loss.
Yeah.
It's a common human thread.
Yeah.
So now being more on the receiving end, it has been an education.
Yeah.
And I think that people need some help.
Nice way of saying it.
I'll word it better in the next podcast.
Don't worry about it. This is real life.
It is real life.
Don't have to worry about it.
It is real life.
So you guys unless there's anything else.
Nope, do it.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We are so pumped to be back, and we're excited to hear from you guys. So if you have a burning question, thought, or a topic you want us to dive into, please reach out to us. If you go to foothillsonline.com, hit the podcast category, there's a spot that you can send in an anonymous question. We will not know who it came from, so feel free to get as wackadoo with your questions as you want. And if you enjoyed hanging out with us, like I know you did, please give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, because that helps. We're trying to get outside of Foothills. We're trying to get a bigger movement going. This is a project, and we're excited to work on it with all of you guys, but we need your help. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll be back next week.